USL Championships opening weekend is in doubt. We have American Soccer Stadium news, and we go on a soccer odyssey with Club 11 magazine. That and more on an action-packed Friday edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show where we dot the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape. My name is Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, radio soccer guy, and my partner in dotting the map, Jason Davis. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready to go. It is a very interesting day in American soccer for reasons we will get into here very shortly. Before we do that, let me shout out everybody who is here this morning with us, all of the ultras who support us. Mr. Bob is here. I know Mr. Bob is very desperately trying to get a gift membership to someone specific. Bob, we can't make it specific. Unfortunately, YouTube does not allow that or doesn't have that functionality, but I'm working on it. I will find a way to get your guy a subscription. My apologies for that. Patrick, shout out to Patrick, who's one of our ultras. He is here. I see I Play French Horn is here. Good morning.
Hey.
4 smiley face emojis. So it's definitely Friday around here. Chris is here as well. Coffee and comments, commuting, all those C's are getting mentioned there. I see that we are getting some gift memberships handed out. Armando is here, which means Jeff has already hooked us up with a couple bucks via the chat. John is here as well. I think we've already hit our goal for the day. If my counting skills are correct, Rob. So why don't you lay that out and we'll tell people what's going on with us today.
So at the top of the show, we were officially at 199 MK Ultras, and as a motivation to increase our membership on the show, we will do a Q&A at the end of the show. So for every member beyond the 200 member mark, we will answer one of the members' questions. So it looks like we're going to be answering some of your questions at the end of this show. We've already gone past that 200 member mark. So awesome start to an action-packed Friday morning.
You know, I might also share, we love a good stadium rendering. We are suckers for stadium renderings on this program. In fact, you might argue that Jason Davis created Morning Kickaround specifically so he could talk about stadium renderings every so often in American soccer. But what I don't like doing is sharing ones that come out of nowhere, that don't seem to have a good provenance, that we don't know who created them or what they mean. But we do have one that probably is AI, that I think I might throw into the bonus part of the show if we can get there. I know we're going to do the Q&A. For every member, we're going to answer a question. But if you want some more motivation to get us to that point, yeah, there's one right there. An AI stadium rendering. The Ultras may have seen it, but for everybody else, it'll be new.
Yeah, if you don't know what comes along with an MK Ultra membership, your comments get priority on screen during these live shows. We provide bonus content. More segments get published to the membership than to the general public. And then there's the Morning Kickaround Discord server, which has threads from local soccer, USL, MLS, national team, general topics, how to build a club. And then new to the mix is kit culture. And there's a whole lot of kit culture-y stuff going on. The USL kits have been released. There's a little bit of controversy with DCFC, not Rouge this year, apparently. But there's a lot going on in the show. So I don't know if that's going to spill over to the bonus or maybe even spill into Monday.
Yeah.
But become an MK Ultra. Let's get well over that 200 member mark, and we're off to a great start. Other ways to support the show, doesn't cost you a darn thing. Hit the subscribe button. Those numbers help. Support us on social media platforms. We are at Kickaround on all the social media platforms. Or if you want to write us a note, send us a tip, or have a business inquiry or anything else, morningkickaround@gmail.com.
Yeah, actually, let me say, now, look, subscribing to the show, we're not going to tell you not to do that. That's obviously an important thing. It gives you a notification whenever we're live, whenever we drop a new video. Maybe you missed the live show and you get a segment that is there for you to watch in its entirety. Maybe we do bonus stuff that is only on the channel as a video and not a live, whatever is there. Subscribing is important, but we all know, all of us here working in YouTube and the internet know that basically the algorithm is fakakta, or whatever you say, whatever word that is. And the number of subscribers doesn't actually tell quite the right story anymore. And the algorithm doesn't really care if you have a lot of subscribers. So if you want to, Tell people about the show. Spread the word of the show, whatever, by whatever means necessary. If we do an interview or we talk about something that you think is noteworthy and shareable, post it somewhere for us. That's way better than just subscribing. It's like a little bit of an extra effort, but it would help us out immensely, because really our issue, just like everybody else on the internet in 2026, is awareness. We just need people to find us, and you can help.
Yeah, awareness, indeed. That's a good word for it. I mean, subscribe is one click, and sharing one of our videos is like, what, 3 clicks? Like a copy and paste and share it.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's not too much work. I mean, we
Think
get
of all your aunts and uncles taking all the time to post that wild shit to Facebook. Sorry for my language. You can put that effort into share good things from American soccer.
Yeah, where are you going to get your AI stadium renderings and USL negotiation talk? Right here on Morning Kickaround. All right, let's get to our show. Let's kick off. We're going to start off hot topic here to lead the way on Fridays Morning Kickaround. Welcome on in. Hot topic here on Morning Kickaround. It is Friday, March 6th, about 10 hours away from what is supposed to be opening night for USL Championship. Negotiations of the unresolved CBA contract that they're working on continues, and we're walking right up to that edge of a strike here, Jason.
Yeah, so let's give the update as we understand it. Things happened yesterday. We'll tell you what happened yesterday. But obviously what matters for most people and fans who are planning on going to games this weekend, and we do kick off with the Commonwealth Derby or whatever that's called between Lexington and Louisville. That game is today. So we are hours away from the kickoff of the 2026 USL Championship season. And you could certainly argue this is the most important season in USL Championship history, because it is the runway that leads to First Division League launching and promotion and relegation. It is all supposed to be build for USL. And if there's a strike today, well, that would certainly slow down some momentum. It would certainly be a bad look for USL. We could argue whether it's a bad look for the players. We know that the players authorized their negotiating team to call a strike. That's just authorization. Doesn't mean a strike is happening, but it's right there. The finger is hovering over the button for strike. They're ready to push it if necessary. And we're talking about, I think it's Duke Lacroix and Connor Tobin, who are really the guys leading this from the USLPA side. And so where we are is, will the players strike? That's the big question hanging in the air. We reached out today, and what we got was, we're not going to talk about it right now, right? There's no update. Like, they're not saying we will strike, and they're not saying we won't strike. They're just leaving it open right now. But we should talk about what happened yesterday, because even if it doesn't have a fundamental and substantive effect on whether the strike happens, it certainly is something people are talking about, Rob. So what happened yesterday?
Yesterday, the Players Association reacted to this email that was sent late Wednesday night. I think it was 11 p.m. Eastern from the league, sending this note of frequently asked questions to all the players, which kind of outlined what it is that's happening this week. Can you continue to play? Can you cross a picket line? What does that mean if you do cross a picket line? Will there be ramifications if you do or don't participate in a potential strike?
Right. So this is the opener. It's basically saying we gave a good offer and we're upset about the authorization to strike, or we're disappointed, and here's the information you need to know. Now, it's got a Q&A format here. You can see the questions. Does the USL Championship plan to continue operating? Yes. We are committed to giving our fans and community the best, the professional soccer experience they have come to expect from us on an uninterrupted basis, and we have a plan in place to continue operating in order to meet those commitments. Now, how harshly you read the tone, I guess, is up to you, Rob. I guess it depends on what side of this question you're on. If you were on the we just want some soccer and we don't care and just get this over with, guys, stop, mom and dad stop fighting, then you might not read too much into this tone. But if you were on the players' side and you think that the players' complaints and their demands are reasonable, then this kind of does read harshly. Now, having looked a little deeper, and I had an emotional reaction to this, like a lot of people did, like, oh man, I think I called it cartoon villainy, is what I called it on
Ooh.
Blue Sky. But having, thought about it a bit and having learned from some people in our Discord, to be honest with you, the Ultras talking about this, it seems as though USL kind of knows they can walk up to a line that this does not necessarily violate the regulations around labor negotiations. And those are written down. Like that's a governmental document that says you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this. So can management communicate directly with the members of the union? They can't negotiate directly with the members of the union. So whether or not you view this as negotiation, I guess, is maybe eye of the beholder, but probably isn't across a legal line, because otherwise, why would USL put themselves in jeopardy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then so, I mean, to be fair, you can have the objective side is like, yeah, it's good to inform the members of the union what exactly is at stake and what is, add some clarity if there was any sort of confusion in here, and they spell it out here. So fair enough, but it is kind of wild to see it, and it's kind of a sign of the times that talks about what should you do to cross a picket line, and that's interesting language to use.
Yeah, it's basically saying, hey, if you don't like this whole strike idea, you can come over to our side. Now, crossing a picket line is a big thing. It's a massive thing. I've never been a member of a union, but I'm certainly sympathetic to unions, to collective bargaining, to collective action when it comes to the balance between management and labor. Now, my grandfather would roll over in his grave if he heard me saying things like pro-union talk, but I'm
my grandparents too. They said some pretty harsh things too. That generation definitely had a certain thought about unions.
Well, I think it depends on which side of the ideological spectrum you're on and whether you were management or labor. If you grew up in Detroit with a family who worked in the auto industry, probably you're very pro labor. If you didn't, if you're like my grandfather who had oil interests in the West, yeah, maybe weren't so pro labor, pro union. So again, I won't go question by question, but it does basically say we're not gonna retaliate against you. If you cross the picket line, you'll have a place. Can you be blacklisted? It is illegal for a union to blacklist you later from employment or otherwise discriminate against you for crossing a picket line. The USLPA may be liable for any wages you might lose if they try to do so. At most, they may require you to retender dues and initiation fees before returning to work. That part there in the second question. Will I lose my standard player agreement if I cross the picket line? In bold letters, absolutely not! Exclamation point. You cannot lose your standard player agreement, wages, or benefits if you cross a picket line. So again, this is very much, hey, it's not going to be bad if you cross the picket line. Trust us. Everything is going to be fine. You're protected legally. You're going to keep your standard player agreement. Everything is going to, and you can go back to the union when this is all over, right? Basically saying there is trying to imply to the players, there is no incentive for you to go along with what the union leadership is telling you. Right? Isn't that the message here? I mean, again, I know it's kind of a harsh reading of tone, but that's what I see here.
Yeah. I mean, you could read into it like that, but again, if you go from the management side, they're just spelling out what the repercussions of any decisions to go strike or not to strike are. So this came late Wednesday. Thursday, the players union replied, and they opened their reply statement with, the timing and the tone of USL HQ's communication is crystal clear, and it's an effort to scare players out of exercising their right to strike. This is classic union busting in action. Is that a dramatic reply, or is that plain true?
Well, okay. Again, we are in the extreme rhetoric portion of the negotiations because the season starts today, right? We are in, because there is no deal, we are in that part of the back and forth where nobody's going to hold back, right? Now, again, there are things that regulate what management, in this case USL, can do and say, and certainly they understand. I think they're probably keenly aware that, it's really tough to sell a pro management argument as sort of like, this is all the best, this is the best for everybody, right? But I mean, I'm sure there will be people on the management side of this equation, right? There will be people say, suck it up, players. This league is growing. They want to take the next step and you're holding them back. I think that's probably a thing. But I think generally, and you look at the character of fan bases in places like Detroit, generally, I think that it's a pro-labor kind of American soccer fan base. So they have to walk a fine line with the messaging that they put out there. And I don't know if they were naive about this email getting out. By the way, credit to Jeff Reuter at The Guardian, if we didn't already do that, for having this. I don't know if they were naive about that. Probably not. And again, they know that there is a line that they have to walk in legalese or in legal ways as well. And for the players, what harm does it do for them to say this is union busting, right? It doesn't hurt them at all. And again, maybe it's a harsh reading or maybe it's an incorrect reading via the legal ramifications, but it does feel like that. It feels like trying to encourage players to cross the picket line if there is one.
Yeah. The players' statement goes on to say, unfortunately for the league HQ, our players know exactly what has been put on the table, and the Players Association has been transparent with their membership every step of the way. So these attempts to confuse or inject fear miss the mark, essentially, to paraphrase there. So we are less than 10 hours or so away from opening kickoff of the weekend. So, time is ticking, and I'll keep on refreshing the email to see if anything pops up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you and I are right now kind of in a difficult spot because at any moment, while we're sitting here ahead of kickoff in Kentucky, there could be an agreement announced, or there could be a strike announced. And, while we're talking about, we could be Christy Nome not realizing that we'd been fired kind of situation standing up here. Look, the other thing I would say, and it got brought up there by Soccer Night in Detroit, sounds like right to work, if you ask me. Now, my understanding is imperfect on this, but basically right to work is if there's a union around an industry that represents a portion of the workers, you cannot be compelled to join the union in order to work in that industry or that business. Right? That's basically what that is, right? So, and that's where USL sending this email out is working within. They work across the country, right? There are going to be right to work states under the umbrella of USL with some of those clubs in places where those laws apply. So, again, this is all kind of saying USL is probably within their rights and probably nothing they did is illegal. But at this point in time, when we know what is at stake and when people are talking professional standards for players, for the league to say, hey, cross the picket line, leave your brethren behind who are fighting for something that they see as basic. We're not talking about, hey, I need an extra $1 million. That 12 you gave me last year wasn't enough. Like, we're talking about just the basic things necessary to be a professional soccer player. That is certainly not, it's not good. It doesn't look good for anybody.
Yeah, so we will continue to monitor monitor the situation. But before we move on, shouldn't miss out on the fact that, like, now that we're into Friday and there's no resolution here, fans and vendors and everyone that works these games are now, people were like curious, I wonder what's going to happen this weekend, but now it is directly impacting your plans. Right. One of our ultras, great soccer content creator as well, Tom Soccer Zombie, he's saying that he should be in Kentucky. He has had to cancel his plans. He was going to feature this within his show, and he's not able to do that. And he decided to avert that leg of his trip. And I'm sure there's many other people saying, I've got tickets for the game tonight. Are we going or what?
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that sucks, right? Again, fans get caught in the middle of this stuff, right? Fans, they're saying, hey, we want soccer. We want to support our teams. Don't blow this up. And they're not saying that to just management. They're not saying that to just the players. They're saying it to everybody. And that puts a lot of pressure on the players. And obviously the appetite for the players to actually strike, step away from this, potentially blow things up. And, the union, the USL itself, who says they have a plan to then potentially bring in a bunch of scabs as they make promises about continuing on. Like, what does that do to the image of the league, and how much does that set back their bigger plans for D1 and Pro Rel?
Yeah, that's a good point there. As part of the FAQ is like saying that the league can essentially has the right to find other players is mixed into that. So that was one of the most cutting parts of that email that the league sent out late on Wednesday night. So we will keep refreshing our email and see if anything comes through the pike as the show goes. But let's move right along. Soccer under construction next up here on Morning Kickaround. Soccer under construction here on Friday's edition of Morning Kickaround. A couple different updates, but we will start in Toledo, Ohio, where a group, not Toledo Villa FC from USL 2, but a new group attempting to get into USL 1 is asking the state for some funds for a brand new soccer-specific stadium.
Yeah, we obviously found this mention of some group in Toledo asking for money to build a stadium, and it said soccer, and we were like, whoa, the alarm started ringing, and we were like, do we get to clang the clanger? Are we in a clang the clanger situation? And it turns out via a couple of listeners sent us the article here that outlines exactly what is going down. This is from the Toledo Blade. So over at toledoblade.com, there is an article, it's actually an opinion piece by David Briggs outlining what's going on here. So you can see, while still in the blueprint stage, the application lays out a vision, a stadium ready for the 2028-29 season, hosting 142 annual events, mostly soccer games. This is set for the Vistula Historic District, dormant land off of Summit Street next to the Toledo Pickle Company. God, that's so Toledo. Directly across the river from Glass City Metro Park. Now, I've looked at the map. I didn't bring it up for the show today, but I looked at that. This is right on the river. Like, this is right there, smack dab on the river in Toledo. And I think this would obviously be an incredible place to build a little soccer stadium. They're talking about something like 7,500 seats. You can see it there. The guy behind this is Randy Ustra, and he is proposing the $83 million stadium there in Toledo. There is a little bit of a detail, too. You have to be able to pay for half of the stadium. It's written here by David Briggs. To qualify for the state grant, the main tenant has to cover at least 50% of the costs. Ustra said a local ownership group, about 10 strong, is growing. It will have to be a true public-private partnership, different from, and he mentioned some other model for, I guess, Toledo Mud Hens and some other project in Toledo. You can see here that David brings up Pro-Rel. So are we talking about Toledo just being a good place for a soccer team, and some local business leaders in Toledo thought, we'll throw some money in a pot. If we can get this money from the state to kind of cover half our construction costs, we can put a soccer team? Or is this, really kind of legitimately a response to promotion and relegation as proposed by USL?
That's a good question to ask, really. It's hard to say what the motivations of people in the C-suite are. Are they that tapped in to be like, oh, Pro-Rel, that's an opportunity to get in on the ground floor and become a part of something else? Or is it, I want to access some public funds? There's this pot of money in Ohio that where sports teams, they're viewing it as a cultural or community asset, and they have this big pot of money, and people and groups can apply for it. Is it just that? Is it a business interest? We're like, hey, there's this pot of money, I might as well apply for it. And then that gives me a new business venture with millions of dollars to help me along the way.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and what everybody says, I mean, yeah. And again, like, if that money is there and the state of Ohio has earmarked different things like this, why not? Why not Toledo? Why not a soccer stadium? Why not pro soccer in Toledo? Now, Homeless Shoe is pointing out that this would be a new pro side pushing out an amateur side, which is established there in Toledo, which is Toledo Villa. It was mentioned in Briggs' story that this is not connected to Toledo Villa. So this is completely separate from what you talked about, the team that you went and saw play Oakland County in Toledo, right next to the Toledo University of Toledo
Glass Bowl
football stadium. Glass Bowl, yeah. So there is something of a sadness in that, right? But again, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And if we get a pro team in Toledo, like as much as that would suck for Toledo Villa if they kind of get pushed out of the market, I think if you look at a big picture situation, it's hard to argue that it wouldn't be cool to have a team in Toledo, which is how far from Detroit,
An
how
hour and a
far
half.
from Fort Wayne, right? Like this is kind of creating that regional element for teams in that area. Now, obviously, Detroit City is a championship team right now, and Toledo would be a League One team as currently planned. But if Pro Rel happens, and if they end up in the same division, we get a little rivalry there. Obviously, again, Fort Wayne's going to be a USL League One team. So they would walk into a rivalry with Toledo if Toledo gets off the ground. And I don't know anything about David Ustra or Randy Ustra. I don't know about anything about the other people involved in this, and maybe we can reach out to find out if there's anybody who wants to talk about it. But again, this is just, again, interesting to see that continued explosion of interest around the country in places, minor league towns, not talking down Toledo. That's what it is. Minor league towns interested in pro soccer.
Moving now to another soccer stadium update. We're going to the south, the deep south of Florida, Homestead, Florida. Miami FC is in the mix of a brand new huge development in Homestead community south of the city of Miami. There is the rendering that we were talking about earlier. And this location in Homestead, Florida is not only supposed to include a 10,000 stadium for Miami FC, who competes in the USL Championship. They're going to make a training academy, youth boarding schools, a sports-themed hotel, sports medicine and surgery center, and new and upgraded fields for the Homestead Regional Park.
Yeah, whether or not they'll be continue to be called the Miami FC playing in Homestead, I don't know. I don't think we've gotten clarity on that. This is the next step. Obviously, you see the pretty rendering right there on the water. So it looks amazing from this shot that we've got. Two open ends, or two uncovered ends, rather. Not, I think one end might be without seats. I can't tell. The scoreboard end might be without seats. It is pretty standard. I'm not saying it's bad looking, but it's pretty standard for what a small soccer stadium looks like in America, or at least as planned these days. It's hard to imagine it's going to look exactly like this. And I don't know where we're looking here because I'm not a Miami guy, or a South Florida guy, so I don't have the geography of this.
It's either the south or the east here.
Yeah. Is there a real history, or a real future, rather? There's a history, but is there a real future for Miami FC in Homestead? Because as being pointed out, they don't draw. They don't draw there in Miami. And that this would have to be a complete reset of the interest levels. And maybe, again, that's why you go down to Homestead. And maybe you're tapping into something. This obviously is also it's a real estate play in the sports space, if I can say that without sounding like a douche, which I don't think I can. I think Manu Ginobili is involved.
Oh,
Based on what I read, Rob. So this is one of those things that like smacks of, sports people getting together to invest in sports projects that are mainly about maximizing the youth soccer and sports area, right, of the industry. And it doesn't mean it's bad, and it doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile for professional soccer, right? Because if this gives Miami FC a new home, and if they get a second lease on life, and although I do wonder about them moving and how that changes their character, I guess that's okay, right? I guess.
it's at cognitive dissonance that we deal with in a lot of different areas of our lives right now. But thinking of a brand new development like this, a 10,000 person stadium for the lowest drawing attendance team in their division, just seems kind of wild. Like, what does 1 + 1 equal here? But
Yeah.
I mean, is there such a huge population and an interest from people who want to play soccer, get into soccer, but don't want to go into Miami to the new Inter Miami Stadium? Is that the play here? But we shall see. And then also Thomas saying like that thing's going to get sucked up by the ocean in 10 years.
Wow, I mean, that is interesting that they would build it like this when we all hear all the time how Miami is going to be underwater. I mean, I certainly hope that isn't the case. Man, yeah, there are lots of open questions here, and we'll have to come back around and see if they actually get this project underway.
All right, guys, our guest is waiting in the wings, so we'll get to him in just one moment, but join the MK Ultras, the channel membership. It is $3.99 a month. You get access to the Discord server, bonus content, live comments or comments on screen during our live shows, and a whole community you will be joining surrounding this show and the mantra of dotting the map. We'll be dotting the map with a whole lot of new MK Ultras at the end of the show. We've gone past our 200 member goal, and so we're going to be answering some member questions at the end of the show after we dot the map as well. But let's move to our guest. We're going to talk about the Soccer Odyssey up next here on Morning Kickaround. Welcome in Morning Kickaround. We are welcoming in now our guest. A very excellent source of American soccer content is Club 11 magazine. And last year they did a 12,000-mile road trip in an old school bus turned into a soccer museum. And now they have a podcast detailing that wild trip. Pablo, Club 11, welcome into Morning Kickaround.
Hey, Robert, Jason, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Shout out to all the MK Ultras, and I saw some familiar faces or familiar names in the chat. So shout out to Tom, the soccer zombie, fellow road warrior. We didn't get to meet on the road, unfortunately, last year, but I'm hoping that this 2026 season our paths will cross. But very excited to be here this morning. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you coming by, Pablo. I also missed you. I'm in DC. I think you guys were in DC at one point. And I had travel or something. I think I told Rob, my wife is Puerto Rican. It's like, we got to go to Puerto Rico. Man, I miss Club 11's going to be here. That stinks. But obviously, we're fans of what you're doing. I mean, I subscribe to the newsletter. I get that whenever you guys drop it. It is incredible. I would highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in just stories and history and culture around the game. Just this recent issues got something about the 1966 World Cup and Stanley Kubrick. There's Sydney Sweeney is making an appearance in this newsletter. So give us a thumbnail sketch, Pablo, like what Club 11's all about.
Yeah. I think it would. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but I think it would be helpful, I guess, to go back to when we started back in 2018, and then I guess finish to how we ended up having 1998 Thomas School was that we ended up turning into a mobile soccer museum. But yeah, we actually started in DC. At first, it was just my twin brother and I. It was our first year of college at the University of Maryland, and it was a year that Wayne Rooney had come to play for DC United. And at the time, we'd been to a few games at RFK. But then obviously when Audi Field opened up and Wayne Rooney came to the city, we were super excited. And my brother just applied to get a credential to photograph the game. He had never really done sports photography before. But we created Club 11. He was able to get in and photograph the game. And then for me, I always really enjoyed writing and telling stories about the game. So he would upload the photos that he would take on every match day. And then I would just write a little caption about any of the players that he was highlighting. And then from there, it was pretty funny that I think from people from across the country, other photographers and writers that hadn't really covered the game before also started reaching out like, hey, how are you guys getting into games? How are you covering stuff in DC? And then we're like, yeah, so, you can apply as Club 11 and kind of cover, the games or soccer in your own communities. And we'll just put it all on this page and kind of show all these little things that are happening around the country. So before the pandemic, we were in 10 different cities covering NWSL, USL, MLS, international friendlies, the whole thing. And then when the pandemic happened, it was just like, oh man, like, what do we do? There was a lot of limited access in order to get into the games and all of that. And for me, I grew up in Peru until I was 10 years old. And I try to think back of what made me fall in love with the Peruvian league, which I still watch to this day. But it's pretty funny that it isn't the greatest league in the world, if I'm being completely honest. But I just thought back to my childhood and try to think of, hey, like, why did I become such a big fan of this league when maybe the best players in the world don't necessarily play here? And when I was thinking back to that, I felt like I was connected to the players because I felt like I knew who they were as humans. I felt like I knew all the struggles that they had gone through to get to the professional level and achieve their dreams. So we just thought like, hey, it would be cool if we could do something like that here in the US, try to tell the stories of the players and people who are involved with the sport here in North America. And then from there, we kind of started doing a lot more of editorial content. So doing editorial pieces, photo shoots with the players, and then eventually that evolved into doing video stuff with them as well to tell these stories. And that we kind of continued doing that since 2021. And then in 2025, we thought, okay, it's always been a dream of ours to come out with a print magazine. So that's kind of how the Soccer Odyssey came about. And we wanted to do 11 stories that kind of encapsulated what the American soccer space looked like before this watershed moment that everybody has been talking about, the 2026 World Cup. And we kind of wanted it to be a time capsule of what everything looked like right before this big moment that I think throughout our entire lives, everybody was going to change the sport here in the US. So we did, our cover star was Tim Weah. We were able to work with him when he was still in Turin. We did stuff with USL players and WSL players, executives, refs, fans, and then put it all into this one magazine. And then we thought, okay, we want to take this magazine across the country and share these stories with as many people as possible. And that's how the idea of the bus came to be. We ended up buying the bus off Facebook Marketplace. It actually used to be somebody's mobile home. And they had a kitchen, they had a shower. I mean, they were basically like living there. And we were able to buy it off Facebook Marketplace, and we took apart the inside, put up wooden shelving all over, and then filled it with our collection of stuff that all of us had kind of had over the years. And then we were just like, okay, we'll take this magazine on the road. And then from there, it actually kind of evolved into this thing where after a couple stops, we realized like, hey, people are really enjoying the stuff that is inside the collection, the museum. And then we saw that people were just going into the bus and they were like, hey, I have this stuff sitting in my garage, in my closet, in the trunk of my car. And I would just rather you guys have it and showcase it somewhere down the road.
Wow. Oh, okay. That's great.
So that's kind of how the bus came to be. And it's 12,000 miles. I think we did over 20 different cities, and we kind of for the main tour that we thought for the bus, we wanted to keep it Open Cup tied just because of how much it meant to us as an organization, and obviously like what the cup means to I think everybody in America, right? I mean, it's the oldest sports competition that is still alive to this day. So we thought like, yeah, I mean, absolutely, we need to follow the Open Cup. And then I think it also allowed us that in between rounds, there was during the summer and then towards the end of the tournament, there was a lot of open space. So we could also do a lot of stuff with different MLS teams and WSL teams and all of that. So I think that's a little bit of background on Club 11 and the bus itself and how all of that got started.
Yeah, there's so many ways to interact with your guys' stuff. Like you're kind of documenting the history of it. You've collected history of it from folks you've met, but you also have like kind of the road trip adventure travel log aspect to it. What has been of the travel log going across the country last year in the van? What was something that you learned or discovered in that journey that you maybe weren't expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just one of those things where it was funny because it was the Open Cup, right? So you get the most diehard fans that are coming out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And I thought that what we were going to find was going to be those people that have been following the sport for years, right? And people that are very, very dedicated. And that was primarily the type of fan that we found across the country. But then one very interesting thing that I really didn't expect was that a lot of these games, sometimes you would find people that had never gone to a soccer game before. And I think one example that I always love to mention is it was the first stop that we did, which was in Asheville, North Carolina, and it was their first game since Hurricane Helene. So it was a very special moment for the whole community, and I mean the whole city was at that game, and it was one of those things where the field that they play in, it only has one stand, and then the rest of it is just like roped off. So it's like just the entire city is just standing next to the field. On one side, there's like the woods, and then on the other side, it's college dorms. So it's like we even went up to the college dorms to watch the game with some of the college kids and see what the view was from up there. But then they also had like a little hill behind one of the goals. And I remember walking up that hill, and I had my camera, and then, somebody just comes up to me and asks me like, hey, like, what are you doing here? What are you covering? And we get to talking, and I tell him like, yeah, it's like very exciting time for soccer here. The World Cup is coming next year. And this guy had no idea that the World Cup was happening in the US in 2026. So I just asked him, like, like what are you doing here at this Open Cup game on a Tuesday night? And he just tells me, he's like, yeah, my kid and all his friends who play on the local soccer team, they begged all of us parents to come and watch this game. So I'm here and I'm actually having a fantastic time. So I think that's a good example of the type of fan that also we were able to find throughout this road trip, is that there were a lot of people that sometimes had never even watched soccer and they were there, like at these games. I remember in Austin as well, chatting with someone in a parking lot of Soccer Post ATX, which is a store over there in Austin, and they were telling us how they became a fan in 2022, but they had never followed the game before. It was their first time going to a game, and that now they're best friends with everybody in the community. They go out to every game. They go out and volunteer and do good stuff for their community with the rest of the fans. So I think that was something that I kind of didn't expect to find. It's just a lot of new fans that are kind of coming into the sport in a lot of different touch points, whether it's the Open Cup, whether it's at MLS games. And yeah, I mean, that was very unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, like it must be. I wish I was in a position to take a tour like that around the country, something I never got to do. I already had family and responsibilities that kept me locked down. I have been able to travel a little bit, but that thing about this country being so untapped that way, or still discovering the game. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, Pablo. Like I started as a blogger and became a podcaster who became a whatever I am now, radio guy and all this stuff. And it's still like we've taken big steps. The game has grown so dramatically, and yet we still have this subculture vibe. And like sometimes I'm one of those people who's like, oh man, I really wish soccer was massive, and I really wish football in this country, that we had the same kind of love for the game that maybe we see in Peru and places like that. But at the same time, we would lose something, I think, if it did move to that level. And I love that there's something like you guys can start something like Club 11 kind of on a whim almost, and it become what it is. What are we, 8 years into this? I don't know that happens in a lot of other soccer loving countries. So I think that's fun. Like I'm glad that you have this opportunity, and also, yeah, we need to be connecting people to the game. I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, Jason. And I think you mentioned, I think you said in a couple episodes ago of how soccer here is kind of like the Wild West, which obviously, I think sometimes can be a little bit of a negative, but then it also brings this whole positivity of like, yeah, there is like a lot of stuff that we can do. I think we did a trip to the UK a couple weeks ago. And I remember we went to visit this guy who lives right in front of Stamford Bridge. So it's like you climb up to his apartment, and the first thing he sees every morning is he wakes up and the window that he sees is just a direct shot to the front entrance of Stamford Bridge. And he does this thing where every match day he just puts out speakers in front of his window and a little DJ table, and he just DJs for everybody who's kind of walking down to go to a Chelsea match. And we're just asking him, like, yeah, what has the reception been, like all of that. And he was telling us, yeah, like some of the more traditional fans don't really enjoy what we're doing, which was kind of weird to think about, because to me, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in my life. And then later on, we visit a pub in London as well called The Volley. And we walk in, and it's this place that's covered with scarves and memorabilia all over. It was funny. He had a Sac Republic scarf, Racing Louisville scarf, like American posters. Like it was a really interesting place. And we were talking to him as well, and he says, yeah, I think some people here think this is just for like hipsters, and more of the traditional fan bases don't necessarily vibe too much with what I have going on here. And then I think to our culture here in the US, and it's just like a lot of people, whether they have a background in music, a background in fashion, a background in anything, and they're bringing all these things into the sport. So I think it's a really interesting time to kind of live through soccer right now, because you can bring all these different passions and boom.
Less cultural
I know
barriers.
this might be a thing for us to talk about in a different setting for a much longer amount of time, Pablo, but I love these conversations. So like I said, my wife is Puerto Rican, and obviously soccer's growing in Puerto Rico like it's growing here, but it's not the sport. So my cousin-in-law was here visiting, and I'm working on my Spanish, and he's asking me questions about my job, and he's not a soccer, like, he's aware of it. Like, he's asking me who's better, Messi or Ronaldo, because everybody has to ask you who's better, Messi or Ronaldo. So I'm having this conversation with him, and I'm trying to explain to him, like, the thing about our country is that we have millions and millions and millions of soccer fans in this country. What we don't have is a unified soccer culture. Like, we don't have one focal point. We don't have the league everybody's watching, because we're all watching different leagues. Like, I know you have some MLS love, but you're also connected to Peru in a way that means you're paying very close attention to what's happening down there. And that's true of so many different cultures. Like, the breadth of our diversity means that we're all spread out very thin. American soccer is not super deep. It's very thinly spread out. But that also is, like, so unique and special in ways that we need to explore too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that was also one eye-opening thing from this whole road trip that we've been doing, is that, sometimes you're at a USL 2 match, and obviously the person that's there really cares about USL 2, and maybe they don't watch Premier League. And then this other thing that we started doing was in the mornings, since most of the work that we do is in the afternoons or at night, we're just like, hey, let's hop to the pub that's, downtown and see if people are watching the Premier League. And then you see all these places around the country that are just absolutely packed, and it's people that really, really care about the Premier League. Then there's also a type of fan that cares about the Premier League and maybe their USL Championship side as well. So yeah, like, I think in terms of the way that you've described it is really accurate to what we've seen around the country, because there isn't that like one unified thing. It's just, it seems like fans just kind of, in whichever way they can get their hands into soccer, they have gotten into that. And
but do you see that? Do you see that as, I do think there's a beauty. I've come to accept it, right? Well, I guess that's kind of what it is, because again, I don't know if I need to always be a soccer booster, and then it's very important that, say, MLS become a top league. I don't know. Sometimes I ask people directly, like, why do you care if MLS is one of the best leagues in the world? Why is that important to you? If you have a connection to your team in your town, why does it matter? You're watching the Peruvian league, and you don't care if they're winning Copa Libertadores or they're as good as Chelsea. You just care that they win their league because it matters to you in that place. And I don't know, like, do you see it as a problem to solve in any particular way? I mean, because again, like, if you guys are trying to grow Club 11, which is, about the artistic expression and the passion, but also, like, you want to be able to live, right? And buy a car and live and pay your rent and stuff like that. Like, if you're trying to grow a business, do you see it as a problem? Because I see so many people trying to tackle this idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because we're kind of working on a project that will be unveiling, I think, in a couple months, that's related to the Open Cup journey that we did. And we're working with Pablo Mar. He wrote a little something for the project, and it was a beautiful piece. And then towards the end, he kind of talks about, the history of the game and how it's been othered for a really long time. It's been kind of this subculture around the country, counterculture a little bit. And he reaches a conclusion of, maybe that is the point at the end of the day. We don't need to necessarily become like, the water cooler talker, like the main thing. There is a beauty in kind of having it be this countercultural thing where we can all love it in different ways, and it doesn't necessarily need to be homogenous and kind of become this dominant culture necessarily. And I think as well, like, that has been one thing from the road trip that again, I think we found is that, people are falling in love with the game in so many different ways, but a lot of times, the headlines and the stuff that's going out in these big media networks doesn't necessarily reflect the things that you see on the ground. I think there's a lot of fans around the country that, maybe don't showcase it to the world or broadcast it to the world that they're soccer fans. But at the end of the day, they're showing up to watch their local team with their neighbors. And you're seeing this in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect, or places where, again, I guess big legacy media maybe isn't necessarily putting their focus on. So I think that's been something really interesting to see across the country, that it's like, I mean, I have seen all these little fires across the country kind of sprouting about, but a lot of times it doesn't necessarily get that attention. But yeah.
Before we let you go, you said earlier that the road trip was in large part to document soccer in the United States as it is before this watershed moment that is supposed to be the World Cup 2026. So how are you guys tackling the behemoth, as complicated as it is, that's coming here, the World Cup in the summer?
Yeah, I think that's it was very interesting because I think in 2025, obviously, we got to see very firsthand of like all these different things that are happening in cities that people wouldn't consider major markets, or in cities that aren't going to be hosting a World Cup game. So I think for us, it's obviously trying to do the type of coverage that we've done for Copa America, Club World Cup, all these other international tournaments that have happened over the past few years. So obviously, if we're able to get into the tournament, cover it from a photography side of things on everything that's happening inside the stadium. But I think for us, a lot of the focus is covering all the stuff that is happening outside the stadiums and happening in all these other cities that will be celebrating the World Cup, but aren't necessarily hosting a game. I always like to think back of some of the coverage that we did for the 2022 World Cup when, we obviously didn't have the budget to go over to Qatar and cover that tournament at all. But it was one of those things where all of us at Club 11, we kind of made this challenge of like, okay, every match day, we're going to try to go to a restaurant of a team that's participating at this World Cup. So we were able to, cover an Ecuadorian restaurant on the opening day, go to a Moroccan restaurant as they kept progressing through the tournament. And it was very eye-opening to see how, like, yeah, all these communities, they're gathering in all these restaurants, in all these community places. And you can find, what you will find at a stadium, you can find it in all these places as well. So we want to cover that as well and highlight it in a way that, people can kind of see around the country of like, yeah, all this stuff is happening. Not everything has to be inside the stadium. And then, of course, with the bus, hoping to do a road trip as well with that. We're still finalizing the details of what that would look like exactly. But yeah, I think we trying to go all out, a big push during this World Cup, because I think it's something that we've been looking forward to since 2018. So it'll be a huge summer, I think. So, yeah.
Well, Pablo, thank you so much for stopping by with us here on Morning Kickaround. And thank you for putting all this effort in and the content you guys are creating over at Club 11. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it. And of course, if anybody wants to keep up with our travels, we have our podcast now where we, just all the stuff that we see on the ground. It gives us a way to I guess, tell that to everybody, anybody who is interested in listening and kind of keep up with our findings on the ground. So
yeah, look, podcasts have always been audio. Now where everybody's doing them video. I'll say it is awesome to watch Club 11 do their podcast. They do it in front of the bus, so their backdrop is incredible. I love it, Pablo. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you on the road at some point, and we can give you a tour of the bus whenever we roll through where you guys are.
Yeah, we'd absolutely love that. Thank you, Pablo. Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully we will have USL Championship stuff to look forward to this weekend. But hang with us, viewer. We have another segment to go here on this Friday edition of Morning Kicker, and we're going to dot the map, say hello to our new members, and then answer some questions because we crashed past the 200 member mark. So stick it tuned. Morning Kickaround. Welcome on in here, Morning Kickaround. Thank you for sticking with us. Members of the channel, the MK Ultras, we've gone past the 200 member mark. So I don't know if we get a clanger for hitting 200, but I certainly would love to hear it. But we set a goal at the beginning of the show that we'd answer some questions. There we go. We'd answer some questions and we crashed through it. And according to my mathematics, we're at like 208, 209 or so. So we'll wait for anyone else that wants to become a member here, right now. But we're going to bring up our map. We are going to add dots to the map of our membership. And I'm loving, we're getting some density. When we started this whole campaign of Dot the Map, there was only, a handful. And here we are getting some density to our map of MK Ultras, and I couldn't be more excited.
I'm thrilled with that. I will point out, we got some new members. I saw a couple of gift memberships given out by Ultras. Also, we have a couple of gift memberships to give out as the show, as the channel. So I handed out 5 of those from Morning Kick Around. I think those got scooped up pretty quick. So thank you to everybody who is now a member. Remember, if you got gifted a membership, it'll come up in a month and you'll be asked if you want to continue and pay the $3.99 to become a member of Morning Kick Around. It's not a ton of money, and you get a lot of good benefits, including getting your dot on the map. So, Rob, what do we got today? Let me work through this. Who we got? Who we dotting here?
All right, we are starting off on Nashville, Tennessee. Let's go to Nashville, Tennessee. We have Vernal, Vernam. Maybe it's Vernal, might be the better way to pronounce that. And Vernal is in Nashville, Tennessee, and is a supporter of Nashville SC Louisville and Racing Louisville.
Okay. So wait, I hit the button too quickly. Nashville SC Louisville. Oh, Louisville. Okay. Louisville, the USL championship side, of course. And then what is their, Louisville City.
Yep.
Okay.
Louisville City.
This is what happens when you lock up when you're doing this and then Racing Louisville, the NWSL side, of course. Okay. Perfect. All right. We got Nashville and Tennessee dotted with Fernand. Let me pull back. We have any other Tennesseans? We got down here in Chattanooga, we got Mystic Force. So now we've doubled up our reach into Tennessee. I'd like to see that.
Yes.
You got to sing Rocky Top now, Rob. Can you sing Rocky Top for us?
I'll save that for the super duper bonus episode that we do in the future.
You're also having your pronunciation. I think maybe me too. Our pronunciation. I always forget it's Louisville. You don't say Louisville. You say Louisville.
It's not Louisville.
No, it's not Louisville. Yeah, good old Rocky Top. You don't sing Rocky Top? Okay, well, we're gonna keep going. Go ahead. What's next?
I'm not from there. I'll let the natives sing that tune. Right. Second dot to add to the map today. Let's go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. We got another Albuquerque, New Mexico MK Ultra. This is Dose is Dose. DOSE. IS. DOSE.
DOSE. Okay. There we go. Dose is Dose. Got it. All right. Who is any clubs we should be adding to this dot?
No clubs stated at this time.
No, no declarations of club affiliation at this time. Stay tuned as updates warrant. All right, we got a couple of dots in Albuquerque, so that's good. I know we got Bob down there as well. So shout out to Bob. What else?
We have another. Let's go to the West Coast. We have a dot to add at Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, California. All right. I'm by the way, I'm seeing one of our regulars in the chat every show over there in the UK, maybe our only UK viewer, Mad Pup, saying no luck with the gifts yet. Now, if you haven't, if you're not in a position to buy your own membership, okay, understand. We give out the gifts. If you miss, make sure you have allow gifts or something like that in your profile on YouTube. If you don't have that selected, when the gifts are given out, you won't be able to grab it. So you got to make sure that you're allowing that possibility in your YouTube profile. It's not something we can do for you. All right, who's in Long Beach, Rob?
No given name, unless it's a very unusual given name, but the handle of our Long Beach, California MK Ultra is Destroyer of Judas.
Wow, okay. Destroyer of Judas. That's intense. Is that a metal band? What do we
it's like Judas Priest understudy or something.
Right. What any clubs attached to Destroyer of Judas?
Oh, there's a little bit of information. Destroyer of Judas has been following footy on and off since a kid in the 70s. Been to a handful of California surf matches in 1980, but is an LAFC supporter and casual LA Force supporter. And if you don't know, LA Force was one of the consistent clubs in NESA, and he said he'd love to see a Long Beach USL 2 club to get started.
Okay. All right. Obviously a hotbed of soccer out there in Southern California. Now we've got Cool Breeze over in Fountain Valley near Huntington Beach. Santa Ana. So we've got a couple of dots in SoCal. Down here we have Nate. Nate is, I think, in just outside of San Diego. So all right, we're doing okay in SoCal.
While
What
we're
else?
lingering in California, American Groundhopper wants some additions to his dot.
Okay,
He wants to add that he's a fan of Sacramento FC and West Ham.
All right, we got UConn, Sacramento FC. That's my hometown, born and raised, whole 3 months. Sacramento Republic, and what was the other one?
West Ham.
West Ham United, the English club. My God, man! All right,
There's probably an amateur club out there somewhere in the United States called West Ham. I'm sure in some place.
Yeah, sure, probably, yeah, for sure.
All right, to Florida we go. Ralph is in Orlando, Florida.
All right. Do we have any Orlando representation yet, or is Ralph going to be the first one? Looks like Ralph might be the first one. All right, let's put Ralph in Orlando. Any clubs for Ralph?
No club designated at this time for Ralph, but welcome aboard and glad to have you on board. All right.
We really, by the way, we're really strong in Central Florida. We've got a dot in Tallahassee with Subo 75, and we've got a dot in Pensacola area for Ken Navarre. We do not have any Southern South Florida representation. Like, I feel like we should be doing better down here in the Miami Homestead area, if you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. We are going a little bit to the west here. We got Halsey in Las Vegas, Nevada, repping the Las Vegas Lights.
That's one of the new kits I saw pop up in the Kit Culture channel on the Discord. Become a member so you can get access to the Discord. I'll post a new link when we get done with the show. Their new kit, I don't know if they dropped 2 this year, but their new kit, boring is a way to describe it. It's very light. It's not white. It's like a cream color, I think, Rob. But what I would say about it is it's absolutely wearable as a normal person, like on the street. So great.
And that's not often been the case with Las Vegas Lights.
No, I have a Las Vegas Lights here that I would not probably wear in public, just for the show. Just for the show. That's old. That's older. They've updated their look. All right, who's in Vegas again? What's the name?
Halsey, Holzie.
Holzi. Oh, okay. And that's South Las Vegas Lights. Any other club affiliations?
Just repping the Lights.
Okay, just the Lights. So we got some Lights representation there in Vegas. Lots of discussion in the Discord, by the way, about whether Las Vegas is truly a potential MLS city with expansion or something. So that's an interesting little development. What else, Scott?
There are at least 1 or 2 accounts that have been messaging us on Instagrams claiming that they keep overhearing conversations that MLS is going to buy the Las Vegas Lights, but that is pure DM speculation at this point. But moving on quickly from that, let's go to Denver, Colorado. Max Landis in Denver, Colorado.
Finally, we've cracked Colorado. That's my parents' home state. So I've got roots in Colorado. Max Landis, shout out. All right, any clubs for Max?
He declares his support for the Colorado Rapids and is excited for Denver Summit's inaugural season.
All right, so we'll put the Summit on here as well. Denver Summit repping in WSL. Not a lot of, look, we did have that Firestone story not that long ago. That's north of Denver in the between Denver and Fort Collins. Maybe more pro teams coming to Colorado. We also have, obviously, down in Colorado Springs, we got the Switchbacks.
All right, we got Todd in Oklahoma, a town called Throwmore. I've never heard of that. Literally like throw, more with an E on the end, in Oklahoma. And that's Todd.
Spell it for me, Rob, because I'm not seeing it here. What do we got?
THROWMOORE.
Two R's. Okay, maybe that's why I didn't. Oh, Throwmore is not pulling. Google Maps does not know where Throwmore is.
Maybe that's a typo on the behalf of Oklahoma. So I don't want to be sacrilegious to the Oklahoma folk out there. Do you want to put it in the capital city, maybe Oklahoma City, for now until we're corrected?
I mean, I want to be accurate. Yeah, I guess I have to. I know we have Tulsa Mario. He was here today. Maybe he knows where Throwmore is and he can give me some idea as to what bigger city might be near Throwmore, because I have a feeling it's going to be difficult for me to pick out Throwmore on this map with these.
That's me being silly again. That's me being silly again.
What you do, Rob?
In the chat, they're saying it's more Oklahoma, and the person was saying throw more Oklahoma into the mix. So hey, it's the context lost in text message format, right? Commenting. You don't always get the context of it, but yeah, I thought that was an unusual town name.
Rob, you that's fantastic. All right, so who's in more Oklahoma?
That's Todd. That's Todd.
Todd got any clubs that he wants to attach to his?
Yeah, he wants to put Man City and all the League for Clubs. He's a fan of the League for Clubs.
The League for Clubs. That's what I'll do that. By the way, League for Clubs reaching out. They want to send your friends Jason and Rob some swag. So we're gonna see what we get our hands on from the League for Clubs people. Yeah. What else?
TLFC. All right, we are still going. Let's go to we have an addition to Mike T, who is in Amherst, Ohio. He wants us to include that he is a supporter of Cleveland SC of the NPSL.
All right. Mike T, Cleveland SC. Is that going to change when we get the pro teams launched in Cleveland? Is Mike going to have to change his allegiance? By the way, this came up when we were talking about Toledo, right? During our segment on Toledo potentially getting USL League One club, there's a group there and they're not connected to Toledo Villa, and how it would push out an established amateur team and how sad that is. And somebody said the logic that I used to kind of say, well, big picture, better for Toledo, but better for American soccer if Toledo has a pro team, is the same one that leads people to say, well, it's okay. An MLS team comes into a town and knocks out a USL team. And man, I don't know if I buy that, but I understand where you're going with that. Whoever said it.
I gotta just put this on the screen. The fan of the League for Clubs is quite the alphabet soup, and we support that. We have a lot of alphabet soup on this show. And then answer your questions. Is this for Discord members only? No, it's not. It's all MK Ultra. So if you're an MK Ultra and you're not in the Discord yet, throw it in the mix here. If you're comfortable putting your approximate location into the chat, feel free to do so now. We have another dot to add, so you got a moment to do that while we're still adding dots here. So we have Christian from Wesley Chapel, Florida. Wesley.
Got it. There's Wesley Chapel. And who did you say that was? I'm sorry. My apologies.
That is Christian.
All right, Christian. Any clubs for Christian in Wesley Chapel, Florida?
Yes. Teams I support. Inter Miami FC. Boing. Sound effect next to it as he typed it out.
That's it? Okay. I thought you were going to add a Boeing FC or something.
No, Inter Miami. And he's got Tampa Bay Sun, who he's also supporting.
That is a USL Super League club. Is that correct? Is that right?
I believe you're correct in
There's
that
the one that
assertion.
They have the incredible stadium plan, which I haven't heard anything about recently. Maybe we check up on that. So Christian, there in Wesley Chapel, north of Tampa. I see we might finally have our first Southern Florida dot. It looks like our friend in the chat here, Almaty777, is saying Miami for them. So I will go to Miami, Florida. If you have clubs that you want on your dot, let me know right now, and I'll throw those on. Obviously, you can always change your name if you want. This is completely up to you, what it looks like.
All right, Chris is poking fun at me here. Are you sure it's not Throw Wesley Chapel? Fair enough. Hey, I got to have one goof per episode, it seems like. So
you said something. Never mind. I don't remember what it was. You said
it was me trying to get to this segment of the episode, and I had said weird word salad. But and then apparently second goof of this segment is it's not boing, it's booing. So fair enough. Like I say, you lose context when you're not face to face. I'm a face to face guy. It's like when you see it read aloud. I mean, apparently I misinterpret text here.
Rob is very much a people person, in-person people person. All right.
The fan of in-person people persons.
All right, we could add this one too. If this is a new dot in Paterson, New Jersey, home of the New York Cosmos, take 4, 5. How many takes are we on for the New York Cosmos at this point, Rob?
At least 3 or 4, right? Yeah, third generation.
Well, yeah, you had the original that lasted through the 84 end of the NASL. Then you had the second version, which launched. Man, what was with who was the guy? Seamus? What was that guy Can't remember his name. Anyway, doesn't matter. Feels Good FC. That's the name of a club. That's great. I like
We're gonna
that.
have to learn about that one.
CASA, Central New Jersey League, Paterson, New Jersey. For Feels Good FC and New York Cosmos, right there, Rob. All right, keep me up to date. Who else I got? Anybody else?
I think that does it for now, unless anyone jumps into the live chat or adds anything to the Dot the Map thread in the Morning Kick Around Discord server. We are all caught up on that front. And then looking over at our membership numbers, we are at 208. So I guess this is the part of the show, right, where we take the questions that ask us anything. We got at least 8 questions. We have a hard out at 11, so we get roughly 20 minutes or 8 questions. We owe you guys at least 8 questions?
Hold on. We will do that. We cannot leave any dot unmapped. So we're gonna put everybody who asks on here. Dude Marvin gets in.
Sorry, dude.
With their dot. San Antonio FC. I see there. What else? San Antonio Athenians. I'm assuming that's an amateur club. That's a great name for a club. Athenians, SAF. Wow, repping the 2. I like that. Manchester United. I'm not so high on Manchester United.
We don't have to put Man United on there. We don't have to do all that. I mean, let's not get crazy. Like we'll add some clubs. We don't have to add the Red Devils.
Yeah, people taking shots in New York Cosmos, calling them New Jersey. Armando, what are you trying to start in the chat, man? What's up with that? Okay, questions. Anybody got? We have about 19 minutes before we are otherwise occupied with business. So if there are any, this is an AMA situation. Hit them up. No, hit them up right here, Homeless Shoe. Drop them right here, right now, because we are live. Let me get the, if we're done with the map, I'll get the map off the screen. And so you can see our faces as we respond to whatever questions are here. We, of course, reserve the right to say, no, thank you to any question.
Well, ask us anything, but with small print, we not that question.
No, I'm just kidding.
But while we wait for some questions to come in, we should also add to our soccer under construction segment from earlier in the show. Chicago Fire also broke ground.
Yes, they did. They absolutely did. That is that is a big deal. I wrote about that a little bit on my newsletter, which I'm doing it two times a week now because I'm a glutton for punishment and work. So find Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. I talked about Chicago breaking ground, how big a deal that seems to me. We've talked about the renderings. I mean, they are possibly the best renderings in the history of American soccer, and I do not say that lightly because I've seen some crazy renderings. But I love the way that looks. So yeah, absolutely worth pointing out. I also said I was going to bring in a rendering that we ended up finding, that I found somewhere, of something that doesn't feel real yet. So I don't want to get over my skis in that regard. But get some questions in here, Rob, and I'll go look for that rendering that I mentioned.
All right, so we have our first question of our Ask Us Just About Anything segment of the show. Homeless Shoe is throwing it in there. Do you think the independent amateur leagues will survive the growth of USL and MLS? There was a time where, I don't know. I think it's a mixed bag because we're seeing some amateur teams from USL to multiple this very year do that. We have Fort Wayne, Corpus Christi, and I think I'm forgetting others, but there are teams going from amateur making that jump to the professional level. But I do think some other ones might go the other direction. We had that story about Toledo and in a different group that is not the established amateur side in Toledo, put in for public money to build a stadium. So I think it'll be a mixed bag. Like anything that we cover, it'll be in individual cases on how things are set up. Maybe if that amateur side is angling for the pro league, I mean, it's basically up to them. But I do think with pro teams coming into places, especially the ones that are tied into stadium deals and real estate deals with the city, I think some of those might get overshadowed by pro clubs coming.
Yeah, look, this is the story of American soccer, the churn, right? The constant resetting, we have a better idea, so we're going to try that, even if it upends current situations in a number of places. I think when you say, like, will the amateur leagues survive? In some form, yeah. I think it's really hard to imagine they wouldn't survive in some form, Rob. Like, I think that the people behind those leagues are committed to making sure those leagues stand the test of time. But you obviously have a situation where there will have to be turnover, right? And to your point about pro teams coming in, if there's more pro appetite, well, that's good. But it does mean that the amateur teams that exist that aren't attached to those pro clubs will be pushed out, which means, and even if a pro club comes in and or even if an amateur team wants to level up, obviously that leaves the league without that team in that place. But I think the appetite for soccer is such that there will be new amateur teams kind of popping up all over the place to fill that gap. It means none of these leagues can be settled, but when have they ever been, you know?
One thing I will add to that, what actually might be a bigger danger to the amateur leagues that as they exist now, is what happens with the white paper proposals to the college world. If college goes year round, that's a huge kind of encroachment into the summer amateur leagues, and a lot of the local amateur leagues might lose a lot of their players. And I think that's actually probably a more widespread threat on the current amateur landscape here in the United States, to be honest.
Yeah,
and we should say that. Point. And I can't remember if it was in the announcement because I sat in on a USL 2 like state of the league meeting in January, and that white paper was supposed to either be released or the reply to that was supposed to either come out in February. I can't remember if they said Q1 or February itself, but that's still out there pending. That's another huge story that we're just waiting to update because we haven't heard a reply.
Right. Yeah. So yes, right. You're talking about the NCAA replying to what U.S. Soccer has outlined as their solution for moving college soccer forward. Yeah, that's right. Everybody's kind of dragging their feet on this. Lots of questions that still are unanswered about the future of college sports, by the way. And if you are only a soccer person, maybe you're not paying attention to just how much the money that is now being paid to players is impacting college sports across the board. I mean, we've had now a team sue a player over him leaving to go to a different school because of money paid. I mean, this is now effectively professional sports, like in terms of American football and basketball, certainly. So how is soccer? I'm not saying players are getting paid like that. They're obviously not. But how will the trickle down, or how will that money kind of change the pool? And as you said, if U.S. Soccer's plan comes to pass, or if there's some sort of approach that changes the availability of college players or the right path for them if they want to go pro, then that eliminates that available labor pool for those summer teams. And look, I think some people might say, well, should you even have, teams that if you're not kind of running year round, the calendar is so different here that allows for the amateur teams. That's great. But on the other side of the coin, are they really fully fleshed out clubs if they're just kind of scooping up college kids for a couple of months every summer? Right. But at the same time, we need a runway and we need to be able to have people who want to try, not have to spend incredible amounts of money to start a club, because what we're seeing in a number of places is clubs going in with a summer league team, getting a lot of interest, and then, maybe this is something to build on to go pro one day or to move up to a different level.
Moving on to our next question from our MK Ultras. You can still become an MK Ultra in the show, and let's keep adding that number of Ultras. But Riverside Grove, why can't USL negotiate a separate CBA for each tier?
This right now, this is a USL Championship collective bargaining agreement. Now, obviously, they want to launch a new league with Division One, and if you've been following, that has gotten mentioned, right? There have been discussions around what Division One would look like. In fact, it was part of the back and forth that we had over the last week, because Jeff Carlisle had the story about what the original offer was from USL for D1 salary minimums and things like that. Then, things kind of continue to develop around the championship and the lack of an agreement. You had the league saying, hey, we made a good offer. And then the player said, yeah, but no, but you didn't. And here's why. And, oh, by the way, you threw this D1 thing at us and we're trying to scramble with that because we don't know what that means. But yeah, each of these tiers has their own CBA, because obviously you're talking about different financial resources available to clubs. And it just makes sense. You're going to pay League One players less than you pay championship players. So yeah, I think that is a thing.
As I desperately try to refresh my email to see if we have any updates on this same question or this subject, how late can they hold out on announcing a strike beyond the fans or stadium workers that are watching this closely? And it's crazy. Like, there's people that are like, will I be going to a soccer game this weekend or won't I?
Yeah, man. I don't. So I'm going to kind of leave it up, and I would love to hear what everybody in the chat and the ultras have to think of. How they think about this. I mean, obviously, like, again, that's what I meant by the fans are in the middle, and obviously, stadium workers shouldn't forget them too. They're in the middle of this as well. Should there be a responsibility? Because ultimately, right now, the owners, the USL rather, hasn't said we're thinking about locking out the players, right? They haven't done that. They haven't said that. Now they could. Obviously, I don't know that there requires any public statement ahead of doing it. I guess they could just lock out the players. But right now, in terms of the saber rattling, that's on the USL players' side. The USL players are the ones who said we've authorized a strike. So does it behoove the USL players? Is there a responsibility on the players who certainly want to do right by the fans and certainly, I imagine, want the solidarity that the fans have showed them to continue? Is it on them to say, we don't have an agreement, but we're not striking. You're good to go for this weekend, right? Is that necessary, or should the players be kind of playing their cards closer to their vest now so that, as this day goes on, they still have that card to play if they need to?
Got a show related question here. Kate, can we play? I play French Horn. Can we update the map ourselves? You might be able to, but it's a lot more fun to do it together, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, if she wants to update her particular entry, I can see about that. I mean, honestly, we just threw this together and tried to get it so everybody's dot is there and everybody is represented. I have access to see it from my own Google account, but I can't mess with it unless I'm under the Morning Kickaround Google account. So we'll check on that.
This is not necessarily a question, but John Stark says we should get a repertoire of sound effects, and they're funny and never gets tired of them. We got one good sound effect.
Sarcasm. Is that sarcasm, John? Is that sarcasm? I don't know if that's sarcasm. I'm a guy that's been known to play some sound effects on various soccer things I've done. So I'm just wondering, John's having a go. You having a go?
Maybe not. Like I said, when you're reading text, it's hard to know the tone, tenor, and context of the text you read sometimes. This asks, will the USASA step up and organize regional leagues?
Does anybody know? Again, like, you've got this governing body that has a role to play. You've got all these leagues, right? And like, that's the thing. It's amateur soccer, NPSL, UPSL, League for Clubs, Midwest Premier League. These are all amateur leagues. And I'm not saying all of them are sort of in this for money, but they're businesses, right? And there has to be sort of this makes sense for us to keep organizing this thing because our revenue outweighs our bills. Now, maybe you're hoping to keep those low, but they're all ultimately business entities, or at least they're, trying to break even, like whether they're not for profit or whatever, they're trying to break even. So if you're talking about how these things work in America, it's always like that. It's always like somebody like, oh, I want to start a business. You can't stop me because we have laws against you stopping me. So I always wonder about that part. Like, how do we funnel everybody's effort into one channel when they won't really want to be operating in one channel? I mean, that's what League for Clubs is, Rob. It's a breakaway league.
Yeah. Good point there. Note here, Tom Soccer Zombie, Lexington just announced a sellout for tonight's match against Louisville. Louisville, my apologies. A strike now. Louisville. A strike now would be diabolical. Not a question, but a statement. And that makes me think, so can American soccer swallow a significant work stoppage? And what is it, 10,000 people at the very least here? Can USL and lower league American soccer have 8,000 disappointed people at one time? There's not too many games at this level that draw that many people. And so this is a potential watershed moment, so to speak, at least in that region. Is that something that, turns people away and they, say, forget it? I mean, a lot of people turned away from the NHL for a long time when they had their lockout like 20 so years ago. And it took them a long time to come back and may never have actually come back to that level. Or is it draws more people to dig in a little bit more and say, why isn't there a game and why is there a work stoppage?
Man, I mean, the cynical view is that this is leverage, right? That's leverage on the part of the players to say, oh, you've got a big derby match on your opening weekend. Oh, you're going to sell that thing out. Oh, well, it would be a shame if something happened to your pretty derby match. Like, well, and I'm not trying to put, sort of criminal, criminal behavior or attitudes on the part of the players. It's just it's part and parcel, right? You've got a moment where the players might have some leverage if the league really believes that they're at major risk of losing out on the big celebration in Kentucky and the wider event of opening weekend, as we have described, out ahead of all these plans they have for doing all this flashy stuff. And I can be very critical about USL, maybe based on the way things stand right now, what's visible to us on the outside, them making these big plans without having taken care of their business behind the scenes, which would be the CBA, right? If you don't have your house in order, don't invite a bunch of people over. Like if you haven't cleaned your bathroom in 3 weeks, you don't say, hey, let's have a party. Everybody come over and see my house. You take care of that first, then you invite everybody over. And it seems as though, and again, this is the perception, and perception matters. It seems as though USL was like, everybody come over. We're doing this big thing. Oh, snap. Can we put away all the cigarette butts, and can somebody get rid of the beer cans, whatever that they got going on, right? That's what it feels like. And so if the players have leverage around this, maybe we creep closer. I mean, we could have an 11th hour agreement today. I don't feel like that's necessarily likely, because I do think the USL is pretty dug in on some stuff that they're not going to move on, but it's possible. And look, again, status quo is out there as an option, at least through the first weekend.
Another question here, Jayo Leon, excuse me. Opinion question: is USL League One the most exciting league to watch right now? Feels like a lot of attention has been focused on this level. Why or why not? I would say easy answer right now. There's going to be a season. Their CBA is not expired. And there's a lot of new teams joining the league, and there's just been a lot of news and updates surrounding this league is the why that I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think also what is interesting is that, we're focused on the championship right now because of the CBA agreement. But USL League One is kind of in a weird place where there's all this growth and excitement and for good reason, but they've had a couple of black eye things happen over the last 6 months or so. And you're kind of like, oh, like, is there, look, individual clubs are individual clubs and they're operated individually. So they're individual clubs. And maybe it's not fair to kind of hold the entire league to that sort of, well, it's, if this club had to pause operations, or this club Tormenta shut down right before the season, well, then everything stinks in USL League One. That's clearly not fair. But I do think the league has, again, a perception issue around the viability of a league. If you can have a team shut down that's been around for almost 10 years, shut down 2 weeks before the season starts.
Yeah, what a tricky situation that is. And going back to the whole labor negotiations thing, the only kind of comparable thing that we can use right now in this moment is the Minor League Hockey Players Association did actually go on a strike in December. They were able to get what they wanted in those negotiations. And from what reports have said, it's still been a watershed year for attendance in minor league hockey. Obviously, hockey is established in cultures across the country in a different way than soccer is, but comparably so, hockey, they got what they wanted, and they've continued their season and seem to be doing well from what I have read. One more easy question before we get out of here. Can we see the map?
So, yeah, I think what he's asking is, can I make the map available for people to see on their own computers, not here on our show? So I have posted a link on the YouTube channel available to all the members where you can click it and see the map. I don't think you can edit it. I shared it. I think you can only see it, but you can't see the map. And I have updated Kate's entry because she asked for a change to her clubs. I have done that. And I also posted the new Discord link. If you are not in the Discord, click that in order to get into the Discord. Do not be afraid of Discord. There's a lot going on over there, but it's basically just a place to post messages and talk and chat back and forth and all that. So, and you can also put your dot there in the the map channel if you are not on the map already. Now, if we're done with questions for the moment, I have one more thing to share with you, and this I promised this. This is the AI rendering that I discovered over on LinkedIn, trolling for soccer stuff. And this comes out of somebody in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, we talked about there being a speculative plan to build a stadium, I believe in Mesa, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. We got no detail out of that. There was not as far as, well, it's going to be this size, or it's going to be this much money, or it'll be called X or Y or whatever. And yet somehow, and I'm still not clear because the post I read with this image attached was basically like, wouldn't it be great if MLS existed in Phoenix and look at these club valuations and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, is this something somebody's really thinking about? Does somebody really just know how to manipulate AI image generators? I don't know what's quite what's going on here because there's a logo, a badge for Arizona SC, I think. If you look closely there, it's on one side of the entrance. There's an MLS logo. If you squint at the scoreboard, that's LAFC 0, Arizona 0. It has this swooping roof situation. I mean, again, this is fairly standard American soccer, small soccer stadium or, MLS level stadium type vibes. But man, I was just like, oh, where'd this come from? What's going on here?
Yeah, that's an interesting looking thing, and embedded in the desert in this image. And yeah, you'd think that a stadium would definitely need to be covered on all sides if you were building it in the desert, and you definitely have to pick and choose when you have your games if this was ever to come to fruition.
Have you been to Arizona? I have been to Arizona. It's been a long time. Have you been to Arizona? Never been to Arizona.
No, everyone that I've met there is either incredibly educated or they talk like they've been out in the sun too long.
Okay, Rob hasn't been to Arizona and he hasn't been to the East Coast. I have been to both those places. It's been a while since I've been to Arizona. Those cacti, are those to scale? Are those correctly sized? Armando's saying, I love how some of them are as large as the stadium. Are those like 30-foot cacti? What is happening with these
There's some big cactus out there. Like I said, that's embedded it's embedded in the desert there.
I guess, man. I know I maybe that's a thing, and I just didn't realize they were that large. Things are larger out west. You just don't realize it when you live closer to the East Coast or in the Midwest, I guess. The expanses are vaster. Obviously, the sunsets are more beautiful. The cacti are more massive. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, big sky country. When I've taken a few road trips out to the West Coast, and just like how wide open it is. I'm here in the Midwest, and there's just so many trees everywhere. You just can't see that far physically. You just can't see that far. And that's one of the majestic things of traveling our fine country is all the different terrains. And yeah, big sky country is based in reality. And then apparently Arizona, 30-foot cactus. Who knew?
30-foot cacti in Arizona at Desert Crest Stadium, out there in the middle of the desert. There's nothing else. It's just the wildlife grows right up to the stadium. I'd love it. One entrance apparently for the stadium, just one. And then also there's like random just two vendors hanging out by the entrance. I know I'm being harsh.
They'll be doing big business if there's just the two vendors there,
We do have a chat, and I figured out we were probably just missing something. But saguaros, I don't know how to say that, can grow up to 40 feet, so it's legit that they're that big. It's impressive. That's impressive. All right,
well,
Rob,
fair enough.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think that we've gone past our hard stop at 11. So big thanks to our guest Pablo from Club 11 Magazine. Fantastic interview. Go back and watch that if you didn't. Brought some joy to this show. And then we'll continue watching the USL labor negotiation stuff. And then thank you to all of our brand new members over the 200 member mark. That's fantastic. And we've really seen a lot of growth in the membership in the last few weeks, and couldn't be happier about that. As this show stands and this channel stands, it is you guys powering us, continuing us, making it able for us to continue the show. It's you guys. So thank you so much for doing that. And we will be back on Monday. So until then, everyone, be brave, stay warm, enjoy your soccer.